So is this a case of where there's smoke, there's fire with Kevin Durant and the Spurs rumors?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're in the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kansas 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Happy Friday, everybody. TGIF. Hope you're having a great end of the work week. And we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever we get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Kansas 5 Plus app, YouTube. We appreciate you coming here every single day to Locked On Spurs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get themselves $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. What are we talking about today? All right. Yes, we're going to talk about Kevin Durant, Spurs rumors again, but not to rehash it, but in the sense of, is there smoke? There's fire. We have another report, or should I say multiple reports, of, once again, Durant possibly landing in San Antonio. As you all know, they'll be via trade, but nevertheless, yeah, we have a new update. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about if this is all just a smoke screen. Should we even take any stock in these reports that seemingly do have legs? So much more. Then we get to some fan comments left at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. So we're going to bring in our guest. He is back to wrap up the week with us, Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Be sure to follow him on X at Sweep the League. Rudy, welcome back to Locked On Spurs, buddy.
Appreciate you having me on, Jeff. You start the week with me, you end the week with me, right? I guess it's something the fans may get used to, hopefully.
You bookend the week with us here, and a little birdie tells me you might be even starting next week again with us. So, what could happen on Monday? Yeah, it might be
just teasing it.
just teasing it. I wonder what's happened on Monday, where Rudy and maybe several other people might be joining. So. We'll definitely look forward to that on Monday. But you're here to talk about Kevin Durant, Spurs rumors. All right, so let's catch up, everybody, what's going on. We have another report, this time via out of a Arizona sports radio show, where the host said that they're hearing that Kevin Durant's camp has pretty much said that they consider San Antonio a landing spot. So we have another report of this surfacing, the Spurs Durant links. We had previous reports of ESPN Sharania saying that there's been mutual interest between Durant and the Spurs last season at the trade deadline. Multiple other sources with legs have been reporting on this. And again, we're going to get into the whole, trade and whatnot, and ask Rudy whether or not he's cooled on his stance regarding San Antonio and KD. But let's start off this segment with this. Is this a case of where there's smoke, there's fire? This keeps on keeping on, Rudy. It's getting to the point now where maybe Spurs fans are probably expecting something to happen.
In this case, I think, in normal cases for the Spurs where there's smoke, there's fire, it's usually never anything that's going to happen. A lot of it is smoke screen. But in this instance, it probably has a lot more legs than a lot of people give it credit to. Again, the ties that he has to the University of Texas in Austin, being so close to San Antonio. He loves being in Austin. He loves being in Texas. I mean, he's also, an NBA superstar, albeit he's at the end of his career. So I think in this case, overall, there are negotiations, put it that way. I think what it comes down to is which players are going in return. Can they get the draft picks, squared away? This and that. I think that is probably the biggest question mark of everything. But in this case, to sum it up, the fire is real on this one.
As Bane said in the Batman movie, the fire rises. And the fire is rising in Antonio regarding KD and the Spurs. And again, it's not just the Arizona sports radio that mentioned this. Sharania reporting it. You got the ESPN's Windhorse saying, quote, 98% sure Durant won't be with the Suns next season. And he even picked the Spurs among the top suitors, along with the Rockets and the Warriors. Now, it seems there's a lot of smoke. But history should teach us, Rudy, whenever there is smoke and the Spurs name is involved, nothing ever happens. It's when the Spurs are quiet. Are we facing that lesson once again, this time with Durant and the Spurs?
I'm gonna say no on this one. And normally the last time we've seen this happen was with the De'Aaron Fox deal, which, again, a lot of us were talking about it a year in advance, and then it came to fruition that he wanted to be in San Antonio. it's going to be similar to that. Durant wants out of Phoenix. And if he doesn't get out of Phoenix, he wants them to put this, elaborate team around him, which with the Bradley Beal situation, it's damn near impossible to do. So he's going to be 98% out, like Windhorst said. He's going to be out of Phoenix. And I think, with the whole Spurs talk, it should show Spurs fans one thing, is that the Spurs are in prime position, not just for Durant, but to make any deal that they want to make regarding whoever it is. Is Kevin Durant at the top of their list? I honestly will say this. I don't think they have a true player that we're talking about at the top of their list. Right now, the Spurs are looking at who can we add to the current roster and not make significant changes, because, again, it's all salary cap situation as well. You get a big name, you get a big contract in return. You can also give away contracts, Devin Vassell, Kelvin Johnson, but you are gutting your depth at each position. So it's a very thin line that you have to cross. But right now, I think everything's on the table. I would say Durant, San Antonio it has a lot of legs. There is fire. I don't think this is just smokescreen, but keep an open umbrella. There's more players than just Kevin Durant being talked about.
Yeah, and look, this is all stemming from the fact that the Spurs want to bring in another star player of Kevin Durant's ilk to pair with Wemby, Fox, and Castle. And Durant, technically, yes, would fill that void despite his age. More on that later. Last season, he shot from the field the highest in his career. He's still a double-figure scoring threat. He is a known commodity. He is a proven commodity. He's won championships in the NBA. Bringing him to San Antonio, at least on paper, makes sense. That would boost the Spurs in the Western Conference. It will push them probably into the playoffs. That move would be the right move if the Spurs want to win now. But Rudy, we've heard it from Brian Wright, Mitch Johnson. They're going to be methodical. They're not going to skip steps. But isn't this skipping steps if the Spurs do make a move, Rudy? For Kevin Durant, that is?
That's a good question, and I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no on it, because you gotta look at the skipping step part. A skipping step is like, you are just going all in, like the Florida Marlins from back in the day when they brought in every superstar to win a World Series that year. We've seen it in football with, I think the Rams did it one year as well, win a Super Bowl. But the thing with this is that it depends on what you give up for Kevin Durant or for any other player at that point. Skipping steps will be giving away, Stephon Castle, number 2 pick, just giving away a lot of depth that you have at the positions that you currently have. Other than the fact that you're giving away, hey, we're going to throw in Devin, who has to be an obvious choice in this situation. And maybe our 14th pick, you still got a number 2 pick, you still got picks to work with later on in the future. You didn't gut your roster, so that's not necessarily skipping step. That's making a smart investment and a smart addition. So in this case, it's not so much skipping steps. It just depends on what you give up for, i.e., Durant or Giannis, who I don't think Giannis is coming anyway. But any type of player like that, that's where I think the whole skipping step process, I would say no, not as a fact. This one is right. They're gonna really just build around what they have right now. And if it's just a lo and behold, this is a offer we cannot pass up, then they're gonna do it. But I mean, everybody knows the Spurs don't make big moves like this without really looking everything over. It's just very uncommon for them to do it.
Yeah, the Spurs Durant rumors have been persistent this offseason, even in seasons in past. I believe before he landed with the Warriors, that one time, the Spurs again were in the mix. So the Spurs Durant link has always been there for quite some time. But this offseason, it really seems to hit in a fever pitch. A couple of stats before we hit a break here. Last season, 26.6 points per game, 53% shooting from the field, 43% shooting from the 3 line. And that's at age 36. 36. That's very young in the outside world, but in the NBA world, that's already getting up there. Nevertheless, that does kind of make you kind of scratch your head and say, well, maybe. But you know what? Let's go ahead and take a break. When we get back, we're going to continue our chat about Kevin Durant, Spurs rumors. Again, they're being persistent. The fires are rising, as Bain says. Is this a case of where there's smoke, there is fire? More on this with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Make sure to follow him on X at Sweep the League. But first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in the action than with FanDuel. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Look, how could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? Well, go to FanDuel. What would it look like if you combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? Once again, FanDuel. Also, you've got a read on somebody who's heating up. Why not back it up with the same game parlay over at FanDuel? New to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertron Spring.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs, joined by Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Make sure to follow him on X at Sweep the League. His show is on YouTube as well, Sweep the League. More on that in a bit. We are talking about Kevin Durant. Spurs rumors once again are flaring up. Yeah, is this a case of where there's smoke, there is fire? It seems to be, and Rudy brought up a good point in the first segment here. We saw this with the De'Aaron Fox, and it came to fruition. Now, will this happen in San Antonio with Kevin Durant? It remains to be seen. But nevertheless, let's talk about the fit with the Spurs. Okay. So I ended last segment with kind of a highlight of his numbers last season, Rudy, and he's doing that at age 36. Don't you think that might be holding steady next season, paired with Fox, Castle, and Wemby? Wouldn't you think that he would really benefit from the floor spacing the team could create for him in San Antonio?
Floor spacing, possibly. I mean, without Kevin Durant, the Spurs don't have any knockdown shooters to open up the space for him so much. But what I do like is the fact is the pick and rolls would be, pretty amazing because if you're using, Stephon Castle or De'Aaron Fox with Wemby in a pick and roll, you got to kind of pick your poison. Do you guard Wemby at the basket or do you leave Kevin Durant open? That makes lanes, a lot more freer for guys like Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox. So I think what it does is it's more of a pick your poison type of thing with Kevin Durant here. I really expect his shot attempts to maybe go down a bit, which means his scoring may go down a bit. Not saying he's not going to average 26, but I'm right around that 22, 23 mark. So not a whole lot. But what I really see him really, really helping out is the leadership. I mean, you've got a guy who's won titles, who's been in the playoffs, for a good amount of his career. He's been able to play within a lot of different systems. So he brings a lot of these different dynamics to the Spurs that they don't have necessarily. They kind of got it at the end of the year with Fox, but they didn't have that pedigree that Kevin Durant would bring to the Spurs. I think that's what benefits them the most of this situation.
Absolutely. And his scoring prowess would help the Spurs more. For me, it's the 3-shot. I think that's just a big, big win for me. But nevertheless, look, if the Spurs are going to pay a hefty price tag, and by the way, reports are saying that the Suns have kind of dialed back the asking price for Durant. But nevertheless, it's going to be still a sticker price to pay. Why? I'm still, and that's where I get stuck with the Giannis thing, because I'm like, well, if you're going to pay that kind of price, it's like going to the store. Like, okay, you can get the value meal, but for like $1 more, you can upgrade. That's what it feels like, Ramir. Sure, you can get a Kevin Durant and a good Kevin Durant, but if you upgrade, throw in a few more pieces, why not upgrade to a younger commodity and a guy who's still in his prime, and that is Giannis, barely turning 30. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree 100% on that. And
Yeah.
this is gonna be a Comic-Con, little exclusive here for you. And you and I know attest to this. We go to a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But don't necessarily buy the first thing you see, because why? That same product can be at another table and maybe a little bit cheaper at other tables. That's kind of what you're saying. That's kind of where I'm getting at too, is that you've got a price for Kevin Durant. If it's going to cost you one extra draft pick to get a player that's a little bit better, like a Giannis who's a little bit younger, who's got MVP, caliber and trophies and everything, you may want to pay that price. You're going to get an additional maybe 5-6 years of him in his prime right there. So that's where it is. Don't always jump at the first, side of this and that. And to be honest, Jeff, here's the other part. You're just talking about the Spurs. You don't think there's 28 other teams out there that don't want Kevin Durant services that are willing to outbid the San Antonio Spurs on what they're able to give him? Hey, Houston can give you, 4 to 5 first-round picks, which is a good rebuild for Phoenix. So, again, there's a lot of competition for him out there. They know that he can make an instant impact. And the thing is, like you said, if you can't get him, no worries. You can always get somebody who's a little younger, who can be a little bit better, maybe for the same price. So, yeah, I mean, just shop around. That's all I can say is shop around.
Yeah. The Spurs definitely going to have to, if they are involved, if the reports are true, that there is some mutual interest between the two parties, then the Spurs definitely need to do some wheeling and dealing. Now, the fan sentiment, definitely Spurs fans are divided on this. You definitely have team go for KD. You have team don't go for KD. Those that want KD, it's for the scoring. It's for pairing Wemby with Durant. And remember, Wemby's been very vocal. That's his childhood NBA idol, basketball idol is Kevin Durant. So there's making the big man happy in San Antonio. And then, there's obviously the new revelation is the Suns have dialed back what their asking price is. But nevertheless, the other side of the coin is there's he's an aging star. He has a history of injuries. He hasn't proven he can really carry a team into the promised land. He had to team up with the Warriors golden era, to get a title. So there's that. And of course, there is the price tag. All right, let's talk about that. So, sure, the Suns have maybe dialed it back a bit, but it's still going to cost something. Maybe not two and Castle anymore. Maybe it's one of those. Has the fact that the Suns have dialed back a bit reportedly on their asking price changed your mind about Kevin Durant to San Antonio? Does that kind of make it an easier pill to swallow, knowing that the Suns are not going to ask for that much?
Man, I'm going to say this right here. And just because you report, not you, but your reports are out there saying that the Suns have dialed back their asking price, you got to flip the switch on this. Because as a businessman, I do a lot of businesses as well. It's a perfect thing that the Suns did that. Why? Because then you enter a bidding war. When you're trying to sell a house, you list it below value and it starts to get into a bidding war. Oh, yeah, we only want, 2 first-round picks and maybe a couple of younger guys. Okay, that's good. Oh, well, hey, we can give that away real easy. It doesn't matter what year, just give it to them. We can get Kevin Durant. Well, no, not necessarily, because, again, the Suns are not promising the Spurs Kevin Durant. They're not saying, hey, KD, you know what? You want to go to San Antonio? Awesome. That's cool. But we're going to send you to where it benefits our team, a la shout out to Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he wanted to go to L.A. during that Spurs fiasco. What did they do? They shipped him across the border to Toronto. So it's whatever benefits the Phoenix Suns. So I think the asking price is perfect for Phoenix, but they're going to get better offers than what they're asking for. It's just common knowledge on that. And if Kevin Durant wants to force his way to San Antonio, then he can all do that. I think they get a third team involved to where the Suns, they'll get a whole lot in return. So, yeah, I mean, the asking price is perfect for Phoenix, but again, I think it's just more of a smokescreen type of thing where it's like, hey, we're asking this, but in return, they know they're going to get a lot more than that.
Yeah, here's this too. And I think one of the dark clouds over all this for me is that Durant, as much as he would provide, the team much needed help on the court, but it's off the court where I get concerned, specifically the financial side of things. He has 1 year left on his contract, $54 million. All right. He's likely going to want an extension. The Spurs would have to need to secure an extension, verbally. Yeah, we got you, just to even justify the trade, because technically Durant kind of holds the cards, right? Doesn't he? He could be, all right, Phoenix, you don't want to deal with me. I'll stay 1 more year and then I'm bouncing and you leave with nothing. So the financials of it kind of puts me on pause for the Spurs making a move, because I don't know if the Spurs should give an AG star a nice bump in pay. Your thoughts?
And that's something I was going to bring up too, is the fact that, he is, like I said, what, 36, 37, maybe 37. Yeah, 36. So, I mean, you're talking about $50 million. Is he going to take a break? Is he going to take, a pay cut? Albeit he's towards the end of his career. A player like that, you normally don't ask him to take too much of a pay cut. And it does put you in a little bit of financial burden because you still got to max out Wemby when he's ready. And then, let's be real, if Kevin Durant is still here, you're going to have to max out Castle as well. Plus, if you keep the number 2 pick, and the number 2 pick's not going to come cheap in a few years. So you're talking about a whole lot of max deals where somebody's going to have to be traded eventually. Now, people are saying, well, Kevin Durant's not going to be here for 4 years, 5 years. Okay, then why do you want a player that's not going to be here for at least, 6, 7 years? You're trying to build a team like OKC or Minnesota or, Indiana. You're trying to build a team that's going to be consistent for years, not just 2 years, not just 3 years. So the money doesn't make sense, especially if he refinances. I'll be with you guys for, 3 more years. Okay. Well, that's at least $50 million, right around that 3-year mark. You're going to have to add more money to De'Aaron Fox. Wemby's coming up. He's going to get a max deal. Then you got Castle a year later getting the max deal. It just doesn't seem to work out financially. That's why I am really hesitant to make a move for Kevin Durant in this situation.
Yeah. And, and you mentioned the competition earlier. I think Houston probably provides the biggest competition to the Spurs if you consider the bidding war, because it's almost win-win for the Suns. If you go with San Antonio, you're going to get some good young players and probably some really good draft capital. The Houston, it's going to get, yeah. All right. Well, okay. Well, even Denver too. They have proven players as well. But with Houston, it's the flip. It's you got some damn good players and some good draft picks. So it depends on how Phoenix wants to take their rebuild if they decide to go in that direction. But it is interesting, because this Kevin Durant Spurs thing is just heating up by the day. It feels like every day is something new. Will he be a Spur? Will he not be a Spur? You're hearing reports that something could be done right at draft day. That'll really be interesting to see what the Spurs, if they are involved, do, and what would the cost be. But nevertheless, there you have it, everybody. It's just a case of whether smoke there's fire. You let us know. What do you think about these Durant Spurs rumors that keep on keeping on? You let Rudy know on X at Sweep the League. You let me know by going to Locked On Spurs YouTube page, leaving a comment. We'll get to it in a future episode of Locked On Spurs. We're going to do that next right now. We're going to look at some Locked On Spurs fan comments. What are you guys talking about over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page?
I am Megatron. Do not fail me and subscribe to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs, joined by Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. He's going to brag about his show in just a few minutes. He's going to put a bow on the show and get you some Locked On Spurs fan comments. And we got some reaction. Yesterday, we released a episode regarding the Spurs at the draft and should they at least try to select French big man Maxime Reynaud. So, Rudy, we just basically said only if he's available in the second round, not that 38 pick or something like that. Yeah. But other than that, you got some comments. So people are talking about him. Let's talk about the first comment here. This is from Amand Booty, 39. He says, not at 14. You don't pay lottery contract for a senior. All right. And you're seeing a lot of pushback right now. A lot of Spurs fans are saying, no, you don't go for Maxime. But on paper, you would think it would fit Rudy. He's a big man, 7'1". In college, I think he shot, I got the numbers here, about 30, a little over 35% from the 3 line. Young, but I don't know. I think he'll be a good NBA player. I don't think he'll be a great NBA player. What are your thoughts on Maxime right now? Is, if he's on the board in the second round and the Spurs are up, you take him or no?
In the second round, I have no doubts, depending on who's available in the second round. The good thing with Maxime is that if you want to base him off of an NBA prospect and you kind of get a feel for his game, think of him more as like a Charles Bassey. If you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, you kind of get, Charles Bassey vibe. Someone that's just going to come in, spell some minutes, help the Spurs out. If they got an injury bug or something like that and they need a guy to come in, fill some roles, he can do that. Definitely is not a lottery pick. Could sneak in sneakily into the first round, like late first round, maybe 29th, 30th pick right there. Wouldn't surprise me if that happens, but definitely the second round talent can make an NBA roster, can make a difference. But for any type of comparison for Spurs fans to get an idea, you're looking more at, think of it as like Charles Bassey, maybe even Jeff Ayers for you guys in Bass, someone that can stick onto the actual roster during the season. So like maybe Jeff Ayers, somebody like that for Maxine, but definitely a second round pick.
All right, there you have it. All right, let's go to the next comment here. This is from Phil Pop Perez, I believe. I'm saying that right. Phil Pop Perez. Now he's reacted to the latest Locked On Spurs recently, at least this week with Casey Vieira. We went into the multiverse and asked if the Spurs had drafted Tyrese Halliburton. He brings this up. So he's reacted to that comment about this episode. He says exactly why best available is better than best fit. Both SGA and Halliburton were traded for proven all-stars in Paul George and Sabonis. So I guess in a nutshell, he's kind of saying like, yeah, Spurs, you should have gone with Halliburton. He was the best player available versus Vassell. Where do you stand on that? If you had to look into that multiverse, if the Spurs has selected Tyrese Halliburton, what's your biggest takeaway of that?
So looking at that draft, here's the thing first, and the Halliburton deal, we're not seeing it until, obviously he's starting to become more of a superstar now. But at the time, the Spurs had DeJounte Murray and Derek White on their roster. They weren't looking at point guard. The Spurs were in panic mode. Why? Because they're still trying to replace the loss of Kawhi Leonard, i.e., the Lonnie Walker, draft pick, not too long ago. Before that, Devin Vassell being picked that year. They're still trying to fill that small forward void, even though they had DeMar DeRozan on the team. Point guard was not a position that the Spurs were really looking at. They had really two good point guards in White and DeJounte Murray. So didn't really blame them for not looking at Halliburton. They were looking at other needs. But again, I understand where fans are coming from. If you draft Halliburton, you got a superstar type of player. You and I played that little card a few days ago, and we said, what if they took Halliburton? Well, dang, Halliburton, DeMar DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, that three-headed monster would have been really, really nice for the Spurs. But you don't know how a player is going to evolve in the NBA. You've got for sure guys that are going to be sure hits in the NBA, and they turn out to be just mid or maybe bust at the time. You got guys that like SGA. You knew he could score the ball. You knew that he could play, but how good would he really be? If you're going to say he was an MVP type of player, I might have called BS on that a little bit because it was hard to say that he was going to be an MVP caliber type of player. So I do get, Spurs fans saying you should have had this, you should have drafted this, you should have drafted this guy. Understandably, a lot of times teams are going to draft based off of a need, especially if it's a need they have at the moment. They're going to look for the best player at that position, and I can't really blame them for that. But hey, that is the reason why you go into the multiverse, huh?
Exactly. I mean, look, his Spurs draft history or just any NBA team history is full of those. Why didn't you select fill in the blank? Why did you get Halliburton? Why didn't you get Sengun? He was on board. You go further back. Why didn't you get Marc Gasol? He was on the board when the Spurs were drafting. Why did you get Nikola Jokic? Et cetera, et cetera. So let's go on and on and on. And that's for any team, NBA team. So this stuff does happen. And that's what the lottery is. It's a draft day is basically you're just kind of rolling the dice. And you can be number one pick and your name is Anthony Bennett. Or you can be in the late second round, and your name is Manu Ginobili. I think that sometimes fans forget about that aspect of it, don't they, Rudy?
They really do. I mean, I think I brought up a point on Sweet says, how many number one picks in the NBA draft history have legitimately deserved number one pick status? I mean, you're talking Michael Olowokandi, Anthony Bennett, even guys like Joe Smith were drafted number one, and yet never a true superstar, but a very good player, a star in the NBA. So, yeah, I mean, draft picks are draft picks, man. You're gonna miss on more than you're gonna hit. That's just plain and simple. You're not always gonna be OKC where you build by the draft with Jay Williams and Chet Holmgren. You still got to make choices and go get an Alex Caruso, a Hardenstein, and trade for an SGA. So everything's not built through the draft. A lot of that times it happens in the NFL. It doesn't really happen in the NBA where you consistently build through the draft. You got to make trades. And, the thing with the draft picks, Jeff, like you mentioned, you're going to miss probably more than you're going to hit when it comes to drafting kids in the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. When you go down the line, too, wasn't Oh my God, what was it? Josh Howard. Remember, I think that was when the Spurs passed on it. And to this day, I think R.C. Buford had mentioned publicly that that's one of his biggest regrets. And apparently, I think Tim Duncan told him, like, you got to get him. They still passed on him. I mean, can you imagine Josh Howard in the middle or during the peak Spurs dynasty era? My goodness.
Yeah. I mean, Josh Howard. And, Josh Howard would have filled a great role for the Spurs at the time. I'm going to throw one out there, too. Remember, the Spurs ended up drafting Leandro Barboza and trading him away. And we saw how quick Leandro Barboza was. He would have fit really well with the San Antonio Spurs. He would have been a very big up-tempo guy. You saw the success he had in Phoenix. So, I mean, Spurs have drafted guys and traded them away. Spurs have passed on guys that they really wanted. I mean, everybody thought Bano Aldridge was going to be, a great player, and he was good for the Spurs for a while, but he just didn't really fit the system. So, I mean, we can throw out names left and right on draft picks, man, but, at the end of the day, just celebrate the ones that, are working out, and don't ever expect these guys to be superstars or stars. Let them develop into it.
What could have been? Here's another one, too, Luis Scola. Imagine if he had, I know the Spurs did select him. I get that. But imagine if he did come play for the Spurs. I mean, the peak Duncan and Scola would have been a terror. They would have been a terror on the court.
Oh, yeah. Because I think you would have had Thiago Splitter as well. So coming off the bench. And then I think Alberto, you could have brought him over. Yeah. That would have been an actual international front court. I mean, that there's a lot of what ifs that you can play with draft picks. I think that would be an amazing summer Locked On Spurs is the what ifs on draft picks, that they hit or miss or what all that stuff. That'd be an amazing show for you.
Yeah, I remember I was salivating at the thought of Scola coming to San Antonio, and then every offseason I was like, this is the year, and then nothing ever happened. He got traded to Houston, right? For Spanulis, right?
Actually, had not this guy got injured, the next big center the Spurs would have talked about was Roberto Jaktovas, if you remember him.
I remember him.
But after that car injury or the motorcycle injury he had, he would have been a beast in the NBA. But that's what happens, man. Life happens. And, we sit here wonder, what I was excited about Felipe Lopez being drafted. I was a big Felipe Lopez fan from St. John's. I mean, I followed him through his high school career, and I was excited. But again, another guy that is all heist didn't really make that leap into the NBA. So it's just a big old what if, man.
He is Rudy Campos. Make sure to follow him on X at Sweep the League. Check out his show, Sweep the League. And by the way, they are back, or at least they were a couple nights ago live. They weren't duping everybody that they were live, but they weren't really live. It was recorded. What is the latest with Sweep, buddy?
Yeah, so Sweep, we were doing it at 9 o'clock live on our YouTube channel, which you can go to, search Sweep the League TV, hit the subscribe button. But we started going about, 6 o'clock San Antonio time, 6:30. So we're going to be jumping on different time frames throughout the week. So trying to come at you Monday through Friday with all the NBA talk, all the NFL talk, MLB, everything you want to talk about. We're talking there. We're launching more episodes as well with other hosts on the Sweep the League network. So the best way to find us is go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit the subscribe button. Also follow us at Sweep the League Radio on TikTok. We'll be going live on there as well.
Dang, look at that. That's where you got to go to, Sweep the League right now. I know I do. Every time I get that notification that Rudy's live, I jump in. All right, pardon it. Love to say pardon it. Rudy's really good about reading everybody's comment and getting involved with the fans. So again, good show, Sweep the League. Rudy, we thank you for joining us here on Friday to close out the week here on Locked On Spurs. And again, the streets are saying you might be back Monday for some big old Locked On Spurs show. Well, we'll see about that coming up this Monday. Follow him on X, everybody at Sweep the League. Everybody else, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Ken5 Plus app, YouTube. You know where to go. We'll be back on Monday. Let's leave it at that. We'll be back on Monday. I don't know where Rudy's going to be there, but you'll see what we got cooking for Monday. For your second listen, make sure to go check out Locked On NBA Big Board, NBA Draft expert Rafael Barlow. Rest every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to NBA Draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. So for Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode of Locked On Spurs.